Hamilton from Audible Elegance of Cincinnati, Ohio. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Please do subscribe. It helps us improve what we do in both cameras and microphones. We're experimenting with a new one tonight in microphones. We have an online store on our website, audibleelegance.com. You'll find it captioned at the top as online, where we offer both new and used gear. Please do take a look at both categories if you're looking in the market for any product. If you have a dealer of your product in the new area, please support your local dealer. It's important that people get a chance to hear this gear. I'm going to venture into a little bit of history because some people like the history, other people don't. So what I'm going to get into is the politics of the audio industry. And as my store, started out in the mid-'80s and through the '90s and 2000s, politics in our industry was very, very heavy. And it may be less so today, but my very first lines introduced me to some pretty rough politics. One of my early lines after acquiring Heybrook for both speakers and turntables was Linn Hi-Fi. Little did I know that the fact that I tried to pick up a quality turntable, that somehow I'd be immediately branded, and I was. There were a number of speaker manufacturers who simply would not talk to me because I represented Linn products, and Linn at that point was turntables. Some of you may be familiar with the hi-fi hierarchy, which was promoted, and I still believe that's very accurate, from Linn Hi-Fi, which basically said it's source first and out from there. And the problem that speaker manufacturers had, and I can see their point, was that the customer coming in for a better set of speakers might be sold a turntable, not sold speakers at all. And it was their impression that their products were being disserved. Well, yes and no, because if you have a poor turntable or poor electronics in front of a great set of speakers, it's still going to sound like crap. So then you've got the customer caught in having to try to improve what's in front of the speakers, but his budget may not be able to stand that. The '80s was very much built on what we called the building block approach. This was something that I grew up with also with Name Audio, where you had units that you could continue to improve before making significant leaps. The building block approach isn't seen too much anymore. It's more of an end single purchase. So you can't add power supplies and other things to a given unit. That's simply passé. But being embroiled in the battle with manufacturers with Linn, I also had a very, very good friend, John Russell of Bryson, Vermont. John is one of the brothers that many people more currently don't know about, but at one time John was responsible for the distribution of Bryson Electronics in the United States. I dearly miss the man. He's gone off to do something else from a family event that took him out of the company. And one of the things that John wanted to see were consumer shows. Because during the 80s and 90s, most of the shows were strictly limited to dealers. Consumers had little opportunity to hear the new product offerings that were coming. And there was a yin and a yang in this thought where many manufacturers, and particularly some very prominent ones, wanted nothing to do with having to do consumer shows. John, on the other hand, thought it was a very good idea. And this turned into quite a political battle between manufacturers, to the extent that where one manufacturer would simply not mention a company that they disagreed with. And this got to the point where it's actually spilled over into the press. And the letter that was under John's name supporting consumer shows was actually penned by me. John liked what I wrote so well, which is one of my gifts, that he simply adopted it, saying it couldn't be improved upon, and presented it that way. Politics of the industry also happen in cables. A lot of people have noticed that manufacturers are very gun shy about recommending a brand or another brand, particularly when it comes to cables or power cords or anything else. And part of the problem there is that, if they recommend a brand which they feel works very well with their product, then the manufacturers of the other cables simply won't recommend that manufacturer because they're not being recommended as a company to be used. And these sort of threads constantly cross through the industry, definitely in the 80s, definitely in the 90s. And this kind of hamstrung what retailers could do or what retailers could say if they were wise. And so the politics of the industry were very, very strong. What's happened since, basically about 2007, 2008, is as the industry has consolidated, you have less of this sort of political bickering going on. And the major players, essentially, of that era are not players at all today. So, every trade has its political factions, whether you recognize it or not. But these were some of the things that, Audible Elegance had to work through, and as to whether, we could carry a product line, whether a manufacturer would talk to us. My favorite one is I spent 12 years getting a product line into the store until he finally said something that was really meant to piss me off beyond belief. And I called him out on it, and I said, I know what you're doing, Tim. You're messing with my mind. That has no influence over, whether I'm going to sell your product very well or not. And at that point, we did get the product line, and we were very happy selling it. And perhaps someday we'll see it again. It's no longer part of our fold. So, yeah, politics is part of the industry, and that's the way it is.